Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to our final live Big Blue Kickoff of the week, brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. I am John Schmelk. He is Paul Dottino. Tomorrow, we're going to have a recorded show. We just did the interviews with Kentley Platt and Matt Waldman. They'll go together for it's kind of a supersized edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. So
Indeed.
So you'll have plenty to listen to over the weekend. Kentley Platt does the RAS scores. Matt Waldman has his just magnum opus of RSP rookie scouting portfolio, which is great. He has so much detail on these guys, and he gets a lot of this stuff right that a lot of people don't see. So he's always very valuable to talk to. I got to put him on more often. He does a really nice job, and he's just an awesome dude. So that's coming up on tomorrow's show. I also just recorded Chris Sims. That'll be Friday's Giants Huddle podcast, which is going up. He gave me a lot of time. He was very generous with his time. So this is interview 4 for me today. I apologize if the pipes are struggling a little bit, and then I'm doing theoretically Todd McShay after this show today. That'll be going up next week on the Giants Huddle podcast. So a lot coming your way from the Hackensack Meridian Health podcast studio. Keep getting better. John Schmelk, Paul Dottino, and we're going to talk to reporters covering a couple of schools today. We're going to do LSU and Louisville. These are our final prospect university interviews of guys covering the teams that we're doing this year. So we're going to lead off with LSU. Matt Moscona is a host on ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge. Matt, you got John and Paul here in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Oh, he's not there, Pearson? I thought I saw him up. I'm sorry about that. My bad. I saw the light on. I thought he was on the line. That's my fault. We'll get to him in just a second here. But we're under a week now into the draft, which is great. Yeah. And we're going to try to squeeze in your calls, too, by the way, between these two interviews. So we'll try to get them in. And now we're going to go to Matt, who is there. Again, he's at ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge, covers LSU. Matt, you got John and Paul up here in East Rutherford, New Jersey. How's it going, man?
Gentlemen, great to be with you. Fantastic day. Sunny and 83 in Baton Rouge. How about up there?
83?
That's why we live in the South, brother.
We'll be happy to hit 63.
On Saturday, it's supposed to rain, but it might get to 81 based on the weather report. So that is not bad. All right, so, Matt, let's talk LSU. This is not last year's LSU class with two guys that are going in the top 6. But you still have some very good players. And I want to start with your offensive tackles. Campbell and Jones, two very different type of players. Tell me about those two guys and what stands out to you about them.
So both guys have started since they were true freshmen. Will Campbell at left tackle, Emory Jones at right tackle. Both are Louisiana guys that were very, very highly recruited prospects. Will is, I know there's been a lot of conversation about his arm length throughout the pre-draft process. I actually was at an event with Will on Tuesday, and I asked him about it, and he said he has not had a single team bring that up to him
really?
In his pre-draft visits.
Interesting.
He says when they bring it up, it's more they ask him, what does he think about all the attention around it? I can tell you one of the things that he told me is that most teams see him as a left tackle. He's had a couple tell him that they would like him at guard initially, but the way he told me, he's like, well, they have Hall of Fame tackles, so as soon as their Hall of Fame tackle leaves, retires, he'd move out.
That smells like the San Francisco 49ers, Matt. I'm not going to put a name on a team, but that's what that sounds like to me.
He just got back from a West Coast visit, and wouldn't name the team, but I think we can all make certain inferences there. Look, I think Will's a left tackle. In 3 years, he allowed 5 sacks. He's a freak show. Emory Jones, I think, is probably one of the more underrated prospects. Emory is started at right tackle. I think most NFL teams see him as a guard. He's a big-bodied dude that has a mean streak, road grader. You're pretty prototypical NFL interior lineman. He was on a lot of mock drafts, guys, before this season as maybe a mid-late first-rounder. Yeah. He did suffer an ankle injury in September that I think really limited him this year that we never really talked the full extent of. But Emory's going to be a guy that's a day one plug-and-play starter, and if he stays healthy, will be a long time. He was a really good high school basketball player, so great feet, great athleticism, but you can put him on the interior, plays with a mean streak. Both those guys are really good.
I'm a Miles Frazier guy, to be honest with you, Matt. I'm thinking to myself that in the mid-rounds there, you're going to get yourself a big guy who's got power. He's got the frame. I know he's a little rough around the edges. You're going to need to polish up his technique a little bit. I get that. But he has that that angry, nasty kind of demeanor that I love my offensive linemen to have.
Yeah, Miles is a guy that because of his versatility is going to play in the NFL for a long time. I don't know that you'll ever see him as a Pro Bowl type player, but he came to LSU after he was a freshman All-America at FIU, came to Baton Rouge, and because LSU was set at tackle, Frazier ended up playing right guard. Well, Jones and Campbell, the two tackles, didn't play in the bowl game, so Frazier kicked out and played right tackle in the bowl game and was fantastic. He is a much better pass blocker than he is a run blocker at this point. I don't know if y'all pay attention to Pro Football Focus numbers, but he was LSU's best pass blocking offensive lineman. The run blocking is where you might have a little bit of a learning curve there, but again, because of the versatility on a 53-man roster where you might need someone who can kick in and play guard or kick out and play tackle, his ability to play 4 spots on the offensive line is going to allow him to stick around the league for a long time.
Mm-hmm. I want to stick in the trenches, go to the defensive side of the ball. You have two guys that I find really, really interesting. You have Savion Jones and Braden Swinson, who I think are both different players, but I think both really good players. What jumped out to me about Savion Jones at the Senior Bowl is that when he was at edge, he didn't do a ton. Then all of a sudden they move him into the 3 technique in the game, and no one can block the guy. And he was an absolute beast. And then Braden Swinson on the edge, when you watch his tape, I think he gives you good size, he gives you good length, and he's just going to be a really solid guy against the run and rushing the passer outside.
Yeah, you're right. They're very different. Swinson transferred in from Oregon, so he spent 2 seasons at LSU. He was a rotational guy in 2023, and then this year became their best pass rusher. He's your prototypical long, fast, athletic, bend the edge pass rusher. And we just know in the NFL, quarterbacks, people who protect the quarterbacks, people who affect the quarterbacks are the premium positions. So that's Braden. Savion, you're right, is a very interesting prospect. He's more Cam Jordan. Think, the 285-pound and the big-bodied guy that isn't necessarily going to be fast off the edge. Mm-hmm. But one thing LSU did a ton with their defensive coordinator, Blake Baker, he's big on havoc rate. So he would do that a lot, where he would take Jones, kick him inside to the 3 technique, and just have pass rushers all along the line of scrimmage. And that's where Savion made a lot of hay. He is a very, very good run-stuffing defensive end. An interesting prospect that's going to have to fit the mold of a defense that wants a 285-pound end. But he's another Louisiana kid and a guy we've been covering since his days at St. James, just down the road from Baton Rouge. But he's a guy that can stick, but it's got to be in the right defense.
Yeah, for sure. I like his length and his motor. I think those are 2 very, very positive attributes for him that will allow him to make plays in the NFL. I want to go to the tight end because we all know about Jason Taylor and everything that he did in the National Football League. And his son Mason is down there as a 3-year starter playing a position which, obviously the other side of the ball. It's not where his dad played. But this is a guy who I get the opinion that some people are really, really high on, and other people just think, okay, he's pretty good.
He leaves LSU as the greatest pass-catching tight end in program history. He set every record. And the fascinating thing about Mason Taylor is when he signed, he was a 3-star. He was not very highly regarded, and he weighed about 220 pounds. He built himself into an NFL prospect. And, look, you mentioned Jason Taylor. He's obviously got the pedigree. His dad's a Hall of Famer. But Mason's about 6'5", 255, and throughout his 3 years, he was a starter as a freshman as well, so he has been a 3-year starter. He has built his body, his blocking ability, and made himself a complete tight end. I love Mason Taylor. It does not surprise me at all that you're starting to see some conversation about the possibility of a late first round. I get why he's not Tyler Warren or Loveland. Mm-hmm. I understand why those guys are at the top of this tight end class. What I'm telling you is, if Mason Taylor ends up becoming a day 2 pick, he's going to play day 1. He's got a very high football IQ, makes sense with his family. He came without a single ounce of entitlement to LSU, worked hard, did everything, and as a pass catcher, he's a game changer at that position because he's a mismatch. I'm selfishly hoping the New Orleans Saints draft him with the 40th pick, and I hope he's on the board and they can take him because they desperately need a guy like Mason Taylor. But that is a guy that was a a pleasure to cover and watch play for 3 years. His ascension is no surprise whatsoever.
You know, it's funny, Matt, watching him. It took me a little while to warm up because I didn't find that one trait where it blows me away. But then as you keep watching him, you're like, hold on a second. He's not below average, let alone bad at anything. He's a good route runner. He's got good hands. He's a good blocker. He's good at everything. And then I'm buddies with Brian Broaddus, so I'm sure you know he's a former LSU player. Now he's a former NFL scout, covers the Cowboys. He tells me that when they needed a big catch, he was their clutch guy. He was the guy they would always target in those biggest situations and the biggest parts of games because they trusted him to catch it and to be in the right place at the right time.
100%. Go back to his freshman year, true freshman, the biggest game of the year. Alabama's in Tiger Stadium. LSU's playing in overtime. The first play, LSU decided to go for LSU scored, decided to go for 2 for the win, and they ran a little out route to Mason Taylor, designed Jaden Daniels, running right, Mason Taylor, front right pylon. One of the most iconic plays in LSU football history now, and that was him as a true freshman. Guys, since the day he stepped foot on campus, he has been an impact guy, and he's only gotten better.
Zy Alexander is a puzzler for me. 2 years on the outside, was at Southeast Louisiana for 3 years before he got to the Tigers. I wrote down the measurables at 6'1", 185, and a 4.56 of the 40. I said that I liked his aggressiveness. He wraps up well. He's got ball skills. But then I also questioned his ability to shadow guys with quicks and with flat-out speed. I'm not sure what I think of him. Is he a guy who might project better to be in a safety?
I don't know that he's physical enough to play safety. If you're looking for a coverage safety, maybe. Zy is an interesting one. So he was a lower-level All-American. He was an FCS All-American at Southeastern Louisiana, transferred to LSU, and was LSU's best cornerback the last 2 years, but he tore his ACL in November of 2023. So this year, it really wasn't until about October that he was back to 100%. Zy just isn't going to blow you away with the measurables. But this comp may make sense because he played. You guys be familiar with Jark Bernard-Converse, who plays for the Jets. Mm-hmm. They're similar. You look at the body, the big body, the long arms, like what you want in a modern NFL cornerback. He checks all those boxes, but the straight line speed, the ability to flip your hips, it worked in the college level.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. I really wonder if on a day in, day out, if Sunday, week in, week out in the NFL, if it's going to work there on the outside. It's a fascinating because he's played a ton of football and he was LSU's best cornerback, but that wasn't saying much with the way LSU's defense played the past couple of years.
Matt, is there anyone that you think we're sleeping on that you think people should be paying more attention to coming out of LSU this year than they are?
We hit the offensive lineman. If there was, I could probably give you Greg Penn. He was a linebacker who wore the number 18 jersey, great leader. He's a thumper. He's sort of a bit of a throwback. You're bigger, off-ball linebacker. He'd be an interesting one to watch in the right defense, and he's a team guy that's going to step right in and do all the things that you worry about sometimes when guys hear their names called, like, will money and fame and opportunity change them work ethic? You'd never worry about that with Greg. But, for the most part, I think the highlights of this draft for LSU are going to be those 2 offensive tackles we started with. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with the defensive ends. But Mason Taylor, for me, is really the guy in this draft that if the right team falls in love with him, he's going to go high and he's going to make somebody very happy.
Hey, can I get one more on you about next year?
Oh, yeah. Good question, Paul. I like this.
Nussmeier, I've talked to some scouts already who tell me they think he is the potential number 1 pick in next year's draft.
Yeah, I think that's true.
All right. So I need to know from you, what does he still have to do to solidify that spot? What's still missing in his game that he's going to want to polish up this fall?
Yeah, whenever people ask about Garrett, I always say if you were to go to Central Casting and build a quarterback, it would be Garrett. He's got good size. He can make all the throws. He's the son of a coach, high football IQ, all that stuff. It's just check, check, check. Great personality, great leader, everything, right? Puts his head down, goes to work. Whatever cliche, he checks every box. The single biggest thing with Garrett is he has it's like a Favre comparison. He's got the old gunslinger mentality, and sometimes you're like, why did you throw that ball? And if he can purge that out of his game while maintaining his aggressiveness, then there is no ceiling because he can do all the other things. But if you guys have time, I'll give you two very quick examples.
Yeah, please.
So last year, LSU's playing Ole Miss. It's in the fourth quarter. It's 4th and 10. Like or 4th and 7. This is the ball game. If you don't convert here, the game is over. He threw a ball down the seam 30 yards down the field into the end zone in double coverage. He got it over the corner, under the safety, split it, touchdown. We go to overtime because he just had the stones to make that throw, and he could execute it. Now, the flip side of it is they're playing Texas A&M, and LSU's dominating the game. They're up two scores in the third quarter. A&M has done nothing. It's 3rd down and 3. Nussmeier's rolling to his left, and instead of either putting his head down and running for the first down or just running out of bounds and throwing the ball away, remember LSU's up 10, he throws it back across his middle off his body to the middle of the field. It's picked. 2 plays later, A&M's in the end zone. LSU ends up losing the game. He turns it over 3 times in the second half.
Oh.
That's there as well. So if he can ever get to a point where he purges those devastating plays out of the arsenal, but being able to maintain the aggressiveness that makes him awesome, there is no ceiling on him. And there's teams that are going to love him, but he's got to prove he can eliminate the bad plays.
Matt, really appreciate the time, my friend. Enjoy the rest of the draft process, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, guys, my pleasure.
Matt Moscona, he's hosted, he's the host of 104.5 in Baton Rouge, covers the LSU Tigers. He was excellent. And good question on Nussmeier. That was really good thinking, Paul.
Well,
in fact, I'm annoyed. We should have asked, when you guys did Penn State, did you ask him about Aller?
We did not.
We
ran out of time.
Yeah, no, I know what happens.
I mean,
good thought.
We had a lot of extra time on this one, so
yeah.
I definitely wanted to go there. The thing that's interesting to me, and you guys tomorrow when you listen to Big Blue Kickoff taped, how about that?
Yeah, I like that. BBKT.
Yes.
As it goes.
I want you to very carefully think about Taylor because that topic came up in conversation with Matt Waldman, who had some very unique observations about him and how he fits into the tight end picture. So I just give you that as a little hook for tomorrow's program.
Yeah, but I think when you look at LSU, you might not have the flashy weapons like you had last year with the Jaden Daniels and the Brian Thomas Jr.'s and the Malik Neighbors, but Will Campbell's going to be a walk-in left tackle for a team. Maybe guard with the arm length, but I think with his movement skills and demeanor, he can play tackle. Emory Jones is a guy that was at right tackle at LSU, but I think could move inside. He's got the type of size and physicality. And then Miles Frazier, a guy that I think you can figure out a way to play at guard fairly early in his career. And these are guys in the trenches. And on the other side, you have Braden Swinson, Savion Jones, guys that can play up front that I think really highlights what this LSU class is all about this year, is getting guys inside in the trenches on both sides, throwing, as you mentioned, Mason Taylor, a tight end, Paul, a guy that plays at the line of scrimmage. Some real good physical players coming out of LSU this year.
Hey, the Tigers have been a good program for a long time.
Absolutely.
This is not exactly, I know, it's like a down year. Oh, poor LSU.
Yeah, they're only going to have 5 guys in the first 2 rounds. And exactly. No, you're 100% right.
Oh, man.
Really good. All right, let's squeeze in a call here before we get to our Louisville guest at the top of the hour at 1 o'clock and go to Hugo in New Jersey. Hugo, what's going on, pal?
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
What's going on?
Well, John, here we are a week out from the draft, and I guess I'm hoping for a couple of things to start day one and the beginning of day two, which is I'm hoping for Abdul Carter in the first round, and I'm hoping that after a run on defensive linemen, and I'm pretty sure there will be a run, someone sitting there at the top of the second round that is worthy of the 34th overall pick. And the reason why I'm so focused on the defensive line group is I'll give you 4 strategic reasons. One, as a general matter, I think that a dominant defensive line makes the secondary perform better.
Yeah, sure. I agree with that.
NFL, less likely that it goes in the other direction. Number 2, it's the kind of position where just the physical nature of it requires a rotation of players, and you got to throw numbers and quality.
Yep. Agree with that
position.
too. Yep, we're with you on that.
The third thing is I'm kind of thinking of the Giants' assets, and Dexter Lawrence is one of the best players, and here he is. He's going into his 7th year. He's a big man doing a lot of physical things, taking on double teams and that sort of thing. And what I worry about is optimizing the remainder of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And the tendency, if you don't have that quality depth, is to overplay him. And I think at this stage, playing him 80 or 90% of the snaps is probably not doing justice to that player.
I think that's fair.
And you get to optimize. And I would say the fourth thing is that if you look at the relative investment that Joe Shane's made specifically through the draft, and again, I'm not talking 250-pound edge players. I'm more talking guys with their hands in the dirt.
Yeah, right.
He's more invested in the secondary than that position. So it's almost like we had this hole. We've had some players come through, like Leonard Williams was here and Ashawn Robinson. But where we stand today, the level of investment is what? DJ Davidson and who was the guy we took in the 7th?
Jordan Riley.
Jordan Riley, which are, borderline, let's say, practice squad players. So, and I think you raised the point, John, that you may do some cluster drafting in this draft at a position, and that position might be defensive line. I would be all in favor of that. It's a little riskier. Remember, we had the call, and I said I would like to see more quality invested in free agency into that position, just to hedge, because you just never know what the draft brings. Okay, so those are my thoughts. And I know you guys have a busy schedule, so I'll drop off.
I appreciate that, Hugo. Thank you very much for the call. Look, defensive tackle, if they don't walk away from day 2 of this draft, I want to. I understand. If they do not walk away from day 2 of this draft with a defensive tackle, I'd be very surprised. I don't want to say shocked or floored because it's a draft and you should never be shocked or floored about anything. Mm-hmm. But they have 3 picks on day 2. They have 34, they have 65, and they have 99.
Yes.
If they do not walk away from this draft with a defensive tackle at one of those 3 spots, I would be surprised.
I'll give you another word. I'd be very disappointed.
Okay.
Extremely disappointed.
If you walk away, though, with a really good offensive lineman, a really good quarterback, and then like a really good running back or tight end, I get it, but yeah. I would.
Yeah. See,
I get it.
The thing is.
But you know why? If you pick the DT at 105, that's right near 99. They're about the same. So if you pick the DT at 105, I can live with that. It's a little late for me, but I can live with it.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You got to go home and sleep after the 3rd round and wait for 105 at the top of the 4th round. Well, I will definitely not sleep if they don't get a DT by then.
And that'll be the 3rd pick of the 4th round, correct?
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken.
On Saturday afternoon. Mm-hmm. The point that I agree with you on here.
You can join us, by the way, that Saturday afternoon right before the pick and watch Paul suffer. It'll be fun. We'll like it. It'll be great.
Hugo, the point I think that you were trying to make in more simplified terms is that when they addressed the defensive line over the last few years, they've gotten guys who at best were going to be functional players there. They got prospects that never really developed into upside plus players, and they signed veterans who are more hold the fort guys than anything else, and now
there wasn't another big investment at that position after Leonard Williams.
No,
correct.
And they felt like they needed to make the investment in the secondary.
Well, there were so many holes in other places they had to.
So they spent big money on the 2 guys there. They went for Golston, who is a obviously versatile piece along the line, but he's not typically your defensive tackle that we're talking about. And so you look at this draft and you say there are a lot of plus prospects at the position, which if any of these guys get taken by the Giants and they work out and become what people think they can be, they'll be better than any of these other fellas who they have rolled in there over the last several years to be just functional hold the fort guys.
I'm with you.
That's why you have to do it.
All right, let's squeeze in Aiden in Boston before we get to our next guest. Aiden, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going? I just I know you guys are very low on Jalen Milroe and like how about him as a passer, but what I'm thinking is Brian Dable's he's a really good runner. I mean, like Lamar Jackson, he was a good passer at Louisville, but when he came to the NFL, he didn't really have any weapons. And I'm thinking he would obviously be a developmental guy, and I want to see what you guys think about like having him back there, and Brian Dable could hopefully shape him up and fix his passing. And even if it takes a little bit of time, he wouldn't start right away. And if you're having a really good run threat, I feel like you just gotta keep hitting till you get that quarterback. And when I know your thoughts, I'll take it offline.
No, thank you, Aiden. Appreciate the call. As I massage my final rankings, and I'll be doing that over the weekend, more likely, next Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we'll be on Thursday afternoon on Big Blue Kickoff Live. I'll kind of let you know where I landed on this stuff, which is fun. I love the fact that I don't publish these things so I can keep changing them until the very end and just give it to people on the air. It allows me some flexibility to move guys around. And I've joked that I've read or blue-pilled myself, whatever the expression is. I think it's blue-pilled about Shuck's age and injury history, and I've just started to look through it. Well, you have these movies where they, either wipe a guy's memory, like Jason Bourne, but then, the memories start coming back into your head, and, you can't
Men in
stop
Black?
it. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And then you're like, wait. Oh. And I'm starting to get, the shivers when I start thinking about the fact that Shuck's a little bit older and he's had all the injuries. And I'm starting to lean where if I had the choice between Dart, Shuck, and Milroe at 34, I think I would pick Milroe. Because you have time to develop him. You can use him as a weapon and a piece on offense until he develops as a passer. And he's a great kid, and I want to bet on the kid there at 34, which is why I think right now I would lean towards Milroe.
That's
there.
what you would do if you were in the chair, or what you think the Giants will do? Remember, that's two different questions.
I think both.
Okay. I could see the Giants potentially doing that because
I think both.
of the legs and the cannon of an arm. I think Dable would find some ability to do stuff with that.
And I'm sure Saban...
especially as a gadget quarterback.
And I'm sure Saban just gushed about him
So I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Would I make that pick? The traits don't match for me. I'm a pocket passer guy. The traits just don't match.
No, I'm with you. All right, now let's go to our next guest. He's going to talk about the other quarterback that we have in that equation at 34. He's from the Louisville Radio Network, sideline reporter, Jody Demling. Jody, how are you? Welcome.
I'm great. Thanks for having me. And, it's kind of crazy. This time last year, we were talking here in Louisville about, is Tyler Shuck the right guy for the Louisville offense because he had so many injury concerns. And now here we are a year later, almost to a day from the year ago from our spring game here when he was kind of he was okay but not great. And now here we are talking about, him potentially going, very high in the draft. It's just been quite a year for Tyler, by the way.
All right, so how did he do it, Jody? Let's get right to it because I'll be honest with you, just from watching the tape, and if you just block out all the other stuff, there's an argument that he's the second best quarterback in this class to me after Cam Ward. So how was he able to become the guy you're talking about at this time last year in the spring game to putting together the type of season he did on tape for Louisville? Tell us what Tyler Shuck was all about for you guys this year.
Yeah, I think if you have to look big picture to see where he got to today, because, if you look back, when he played games at Oregon and Texas Tech, he was really good at times, really good. And the tape doesn't lie, but there was always the injury concern with him. There was always the little mistakes that he made when he was at Oregon, to an interception here or a kind of a rushed throw there. Texas Tech, kind of the same thing. There were injuries at both of them. He lost 3 seasons because of injuries. And I'll never forget when he said he was coming to Louisville, and he was the first portal guy that they got. Jeff Brom and Brian Brom are, Jeff Brom is played 7 years in the league as a backup. He was a great quarterback, and in his day, His brother Brian Brom is the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach at Louisville. He got drafted in the second round by the Packers. So they've got that history there of those guys in the NFL, and they've done a good job with getting quarterbacks over the time. I mean, a lot of people call Jeff Brom the quarterback whisperer because he's had so much success with them. So with Tyler, when they got him, Tyler was telling people that, hey, I'm betting on myself for a year. I feel like I'm very close to getting over the hump of becoming from a good quarterback to a great quarterback. And I think being healthy, being able to play a full year, and under Jeff Brom's tutelage and Brian Brom's tutelage of a little more NFL stuff, of just taking it to the next level with different things, I think he just became that guy. I read a quote from somebody, and I can't remember where I saw it this week, and there's so many things about Tyler, but it was the perfect thing to sum up Tyler Shuck. He doesn't have a great trait. If you look across the board, he doesn't have one of those. It's not Lamar Jackson where he can do different things like we saw here, but he is very, very, very efficient at everything that he does. And honestly, I don't think people really realize he's a better runner than what
there's no doubt.
Louisville did not run him last year because they didn't want him to get hurt. They had a great running game. They didn't need the quarterback to run. So he's a lot better at that.
All right, Jody, I'm going to ask you to speculate on something for me. Because one of the real blemishes on his resume, if you will, is that there are times when he faces pressure, he just looks like he's not sure what it is that he's doing.
And honestly, looks like he doesn't want to get his collarbone broken again.
Right.
That's what it looks like.
He looks timid. He looks very unassertive, if I can create a word. And quite frankly, it almost looks like he panics. Now, here's the problem, right? The guy's been 7 years at the NCAA level, but played so few snaps because of all the injuries and everything that's happened. He's transferred twice. So my question to you is this. Is the lack of snaps at the big-time Division I level part of the reason why he may look so inhibited in those situations? Or is it something that's inherently going to be a problem with him that he's not going to be able to overcome?
No, I think it's totally – I think it's a combination of the lack of snaps and a combination of what I just said a minute ago. I think that everybody talked so much about the injuries going into last year, and he kind of said this during the middle of the year a little bit. He didn't really say it in word for word, but it kind of got to him mentally, I believe. That's all people wanted to talk about is, last year he was at the Kentucky Derby and he did like a ceremony there. And one of the questions like, the first thing is, are you going to stay healthy this year? And he kind of laughs it off and all that. But over time, when you hear it over and over again, it's got to get into your mind.
All right, but Jody, is that tattooed into his head now? Is he going to take that into the NFL?
Yeah, I don't think it will, but I think that's the one knock. I mean, that's the one thing that I think if you're an NFL team, that's the one thing that you've got to look at that is there. I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, he's professional in everything that he does. But yeah, I just think that the injury thing has been so big and so prevalent in in everything that he's done. Now, with that said, he didn't get injured last year. He did take some big hits, especially towards the middle part of the end of the beginning of the end of the season. There was a run of about 3 games where he really got he got hit a couple times, and knock on wood, everything was fine, and he finished out the year and he finished it out strong. But yeah, I mean, I see that's the one thing. I just think there's so many other good traits, and it'd be interesting to see how high he does go, because I think, like you said earlier, if you look at it on paper, and you look at it on film, you can make a case for him 2, 3, 4. As far as the quarterbacks are concerned, it's just going to be is that one team going to fall for him? I think somebody is definitely going to take a chance pretty high. But you're right, there is that question mark.
And then my final one on Shuck. We can watch the tape. You've talked about him as a player. I had a chance to chat with him at the Senior Bowl and just watching him interact with people. You know, some guys just look and feel like a quarterback, and I think Jalen Milroe goes in that conversation as well, who I think has that same type of feel to him. But just the maturity, he just feels like a guy that'll walk into a room and, all right, this guy is a quarterback. We feel like he can lead the team. He has that type of calm demeanor to him. And did you notice that at Louisville, that he's someone that can really inspire and lead a team with that type of presence at the quarterback position, which is so important?
No, there's no question about it. Look, we've had some really, really good quarterbacks here over the day. I mean, I go back to covering Chris Redmond, who spent a long time in the league as a backup, and Teddy Bridgewater and Lamar Jackson, obviously Brian Brom. We've had some really, really good ones here. And I can tell you that as far as a guy who did everything professionally, as far as when he walked on campus, the first meeting he had, the first time he met with the media, the first time he was with his teammates, the first time he was on the field, everything he did was at a very, very high professional level. And I really think that's what impressed me maybe more than anything this year. He's a transfer coming in on a team with a lot of older dudes, a lot of guys that had been around for more than just a few months or even a year or so, and he was one of the leaders on the team, and he demands that respect, and he gets that he has that presence about him. Yeah, I think that's a big deal to me as far as watching the college guys when we see him here, and I can tell you he is one of the best that we've ever had in a Louisville uniform, as far as being that kind of that leader and that quarterback. He's got that it factor when that is concerned.
All right. Well, we'll see if he does in fact become the apple of the Giants' eye. I think obviously we know that the reports are the Giants are coming out to work him out tomorrow. So he's got to be somebody they're at least interested in. Who knows if they'll be able to get their hands on him. All right. Ashton Golot, edge rusher, 6'3", 264, 31 7/8 inch length on his arms is a bit problematic. Small hands under 9 inches, which all to me added up to when I saw problems shedding. He doesn't have great speed, so that means if he does get locked up on, he's going to have to be able to find a way out of it. And I think that's a little bit problematic for me.
Yeah, I wonder with Ashton Golot if he's a guy that at some point or another, he's always been that edge rusher. They played him inside a lot. Like there was I guess his junior year where he was in the middle of the defensive line more than he was on the outside. He's just a strong at the college level. He was just so strong and such a mismatch for them. They were able to do some things there. But I wonder, in watching him in his pro day, he's lost some weight. At least it looks like it's. I guess better proportion on his body is what they were saying. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I wonder at the next level if you don't try to do something else with him. I don't think he's fast enough. Maybe to play as an outside linebacker,
Mm-hmm.
but I just wonder if there's something for him because he's so good at getting to the quarterback. He's so good at being able to at the twitch. He's got that, and he just did such good things at the collegiate level that I just wonder what kind of spot somebody finds for him. Because he's a dude that is just a pure football player. I watched him in high school, and in high school he was they put him all over the field, and he just did whatever he wanted, and he wreaked havoc with the other team all the time. I mean, it was just one of those things. Now he took the next level and took the next jump, and it took him a little time to get going. He was a guy that they had high hopes for when he was a youngster. It took him a little time to get going, and once he did, he became one of the leading sack guys in school history here at Louisville. So I think he's got a spot somewhere, but again, you're right. I mean, I think there's limitations and there's some things that you don't like. I just don't know where that spot is, when you're looking at it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about role because I think he could be a 3-technique pass rusher. He could be a hand in the dirt for 4-3 defensive end. I'm with you, and I think how a team uses him will be interesting because he's not really shaped like anyone that is at either of those two positions. He's a little too small for a defensive tackle. He's not quite long enough to play defensive end. So was he how high of a recruit was he? Because I'm just curious. Usually when you have trouble finding if coaches can't see that prototype at a certain spot, they have trouble envisioning how they're going to use the player. And I bet you that's what a lot of these NFL teams are doing in their buildings right now.
Yeah, I guarantee it, and from what I've heard on this end, that he's had, and this plays into what you just said there. From this end, from what I've heard, he's had a lot of interest, but the interest is just that, it's interest, and they're not sure who is real serious about him, and I think that's why. I think a lot of people, he looks it. You feel like you can do something with him. It's just like, what are you really going to do with him? And it'll be very interesting. He's a great kid. He's a super leader, did a lot of things in the community here as far as some community service stuff and projects that he did kind of on his own. His mom is really, really into it with him. And it'll be interesting just to see how he develops and where they do put him, because like I said, he's another guy here that is just he's beloved by this community here for what he did.
Quincy Riley, formerly of Middle Tennessee, winds up going to Louisville. Interesting guy for me. I looked at his measurables, 5'11", 195, 448. Wrote down that he reads things well. He's a big hitter. He's very physical. But then again, doesn't wrap up, doesn't have great length, doesn't take great angles on the ball. This is a guy that puzzles me. I'm not sure what his conversion's going to be. We talk sometimes about boom or bust guys, right? We just don't know what side of the coin they're going to land on. He's one of those guys for me.
I think so. I felt the same way last year about Jarvis Brownlee when he left Louisville. He was a kid who had transferred in here from Florida State, and I saw good moments, but I saw bad moments. I saw bad angles. I saw guys, go up over top of him and just kind of push him away, and I saw different things. Jarvis Brownlee was drafted by the Titans and had a great rookie year. And again, I see a lot of there's a lot of similarity, to Quincy. They're about the same, pretty much about the same size. They've got a lot of the same things. I think Quincy is probably a little bit more football savvy as far as, he studies the game a little more maybe than Jarvis did. And I think that's what is going to help Quincy with some of these teams. I think if you get Quincy in a room and you're looking at tape and you're going over film and you're doing different things, I think Quincy's going to wow them in that aspect of the whole draft process. I'm just wondering, like you said, there's different things out there, but I've heard there's a lot of interest from this end. I've heard there's a whole lot of interest for him, and they expect him. The Louisville people expect him to be a guy that is taken at a pretty good, pretty high level in this draft. So he's a really good player. There's different things, and look, Louisville had a defense that was a little they were a lot up and down last year. They gave up a lot of yards. They were very limited in the cornerback and in the secondary. They didn't have a ton of guys. So there was a lot of games when Quincy had to play the entire game, where he had to play almost every single snap of the game by necessity because they had injuries and they had a couple of different things that happened where they lost some cornerbacks, and that's the way it is in the college game. So Quincy was out there a lot, and again, I think everybody sees what you were talking about with the deficiencies and all that, but I also think that there's a lot of good things there that you don't see as far as the way he studies the game, and I think how how good of a player he could be down the road. I think the best is yet to come for him.
And he has a good nose for the ball, which I think has to go back to his study and understanding what offenses are trying to do. Final player for me, Jody, and I appreciate you giving us the time here. Jakoy Brooks, wide receiver, transfer out of Alabama. I watched him down at the Shrine Bowl. I liked his hands. I thought he ran pretty good routes. I'm just not sure he's got the speed and the juice to separate. Curious what you saw from him in Louisville.
he made so many big plays for Louisville this year. They would not have won the games that they did, and they wouldn't have won the 9 games without him for sure. He and Tyler Shuck came in and they had an immediate kind of spark. But I will say this: there was a lot of times when Jakoy Brooks would make a ridiculous play down the field, and then you would kind of be like, where is he for a little while? You know what I mean? Like he would just kind of disappear, and it wasn't not like he was making all the plays, but he was making big plays. But there were some other times where against Notre Dame, he dropped a very easy ball across the middle that would have been a huge, huge play for Louisville at the time in that game when they were still in the game, and they ended up losing the game. So there were different things. I wonder the knock on him when he came to Louisville from Alabama was kind of the motor and kind of the speed down the field, and how much he kind of really had the want to as far as that. And I do have to wonder, you saw good things from him at Louisville, but I think, when you really dig down deep inside and you look at the whole process, I just wonder if teams are not going to be worried about that a little bit as far as when you hear the Alabama folks saying, does he really kind of want to get better and play the game as much? That is a little bit of a worry.
Do you know why he transferred out of Alabama?
You know what? I don't, because I always thought he was going, when you look at their roster, he had a chance to be one of their guys this year. Now, he came to Louisville and he was the guy, so I think there was some of that, and we're glad. I mean, heck, we were glad to have him, but I never figured out, kind of why he left. He never really said.
Awesome stuff. Jody, we really appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of the process, and we'll talk again next year.
Thanks, Jody. Be well.
Thanks.
All right, that's from the Louisville Radio Network. Their sideline reporter, Jody Demling, right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Good stuff from him on both those players, Paul, on all those prospects.
All of them.
And on both schools. From both guys.
And very open and frank about Shuck. There are things that you're going to want to answer about him. And quite frankly, again, the reported visit by the Giants to go out and visit with him tomorrow, I'm sure one of the things that they're going to be dealing with when they sit down with him is trying to pick his brain and figure out where is he philosophically and mentally on dealing with some of that whole residue that he had to endure.
All right, let's try to squeeze in a couple calls before we wrap things up here, Paul. I'm happy we got guys on. We'll get you on, and then next week we don't have a ton of guests, folks. I think we just have one guest on next Tuesday. Sal Palantonio is going to join us right on Tuesday.
Sal Pal.
I don't plan on doing any other guests. I might try to get Charlie Campbell on to kind of give us his intel on what's happening in the draft, and we'll try to do that. So keep in mind, but those Louisville prospects are interesting. Tyler Shuck's a guy that could go in round 2 of this draft. Heck, a lot of people were saying he could go in round 1 of this draft. He's got the age, he's got the injuries, but man, his tape was good. Then you have Ashton Golot, who I think is a guy that his position is nebulous, but his play is really strong. He can play the run, he can play the pass. I thought he was going to come out last year and be a day 2 pick. He's going to come out this year and I think be a day 2 pick. So a lot of interesting guys, and throwing Quincy Riley, who could slide into that 3rd round maybe as a cornerback, who's a 5-year player in college, and see what he can do. So between LSU and Louisville, some really good players from both programs. Miles in Maryland. He's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hi, Miles.
Hey, what's going on, Schmelky? What's up, Paulie, man? Hey,
Hello.
Let me just tell you guys, first of all, man, I called for the first time a while ago. It's my 2nd time calling. You guys make the off-season enjoyable.
Thank you,
I got a
Miles.
quick question for you, and I'm going to take it off the air.
Yep.
What is your opinion on Kyle McCord? I've been watching Gruden's QB camp. I love that show. I'm so happy they brought it back, man. I like Kyle McCord. I want to solidify our defensive line, our defensive front. I want to take Abdul Carter, and we can probably take McCord if he drops to the late 2nd or 3rd. I want to know what your opinion is on him, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Miles. Well, Paul's captain of the Kyle McCord fan club, so I will let him field this
yes,
one.
I am. In fact, I had Matt Sims on another show I did last night, and Matt is also very high on Kyle McCord as the 2nd-tier quarterbacks. To me, the problem with McCord, he doesn't have the strongest arm. So it's good arm, but it's not a strong gun or rifle, but he has a good arm. He
little
does not
slower release, in my opinion.
That does have. He does wind up and crank it a little bit. There's no doubt. He does not have great mobility. He's got escapability, but not mobility. Those are two things that a lot of people right away are going to say, ooh, they're going to cringe. His accuracy at times, because he gets a little brave. There are times when he's throwing on a move and feels a little heat, he'll misfire on an accuracy on a ball. There are going to be times when he tries to squeeze it in when he probably shouldn't. Okay, I get that too.
Yeah, I thought there were times where it's like, you're really trying to put that ball there? And he's not anticipating what the defense is going to do. He's throwing to a spot or a player, and I think he's predetermining where he's going with the ball, and he puts it into a tough spot.
For the most part, his anticipation is very good, for the most part. But there are times when he does have those lapses. Absolutely. And when I was talking to Adam Cherry, the Syracuse former player who's their radio analyst, he said the issue was there. He trusted his receivers a lot. He really thought that they could make plays for him. And sometimes when you do that and you believe your guys are going to make that play on that 50-50 ball, well, maybe you take too many chances. So I get the fact that he is not a first-round pick. He is not a second-round pick. Someone is probably going to start thinking about him in the third. I don't know exactly what the sweet spot is. I wouldn't mind if the Giants decide they're going to go for a project quarterback and you're talking 99 or 105, I would be very, very satisfied to grab a Kyle McCord.
Yeah, I would not pick him before that, though.
Okay, well,
that's the earliest I would
I'm not going earlier than that.
Well, no, he said around 2 or 3. That's why. Yeah, well,
99 is technically the end of the third round.
No, I know,
but that's as high as I would go. But I do think he is the quote sleeper quarterback of the next tier down.
I would put yours would be my guy in that group.
Yeah, I'm not big on him. But anyway, I will tell you this. He's sturdy, really assertive.
Yep.
He's got toughness. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there and run for yardage if he's got to do it. Leadership skills off the charts. The people at Syracuse absolutely love him. And you said you watched Gruden's quarterback school video with him, which is up right now. I also just watched that actually early this morning, and I love the guy even more after watching that program. There's a lot there to like. But again, I would say no earlier than 99 for me. But I do think he's the best of that next group of quarterbacks. And I do think he's got some good upside and starting capabilities in the league.
Yeah, I'd put him and Will Howard kind of in that same category.
I like him better than Will Howard.
I'd put them both in that same group. No, that's fine. I have different flavors for different folks.
No doubt.
Let's go to Cliff in New York. Cliff, you're up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hi, Cliff.
Hey, guys. I just wanted to ask about Abdul Carter.
Sure.
How you'd compare him to the class of 22 when we took Kayvon at 5, and there were 2 edge rushers taken ahead of Kayvon. One was Aiden Hutchinson, and the first pick didn't work out great, but not really a bust. And in particular, did I hear you say even though Abdul played linebacker, that he's got some kind of limitation against the run, setting the edge?
Well, I think the only thing about him against run, he's only 250 pounds. Yeah. So if he's going to man up against a 320-pound offensive tackle, you're going to have problems there.
Needs more power, needs ability to throw a guy and do a little more shedding when he's in the run game. He's got to be a little more stout, too. If a guy runs into him, he's got to be able to hold it.
Heading into both drafts, I would have, if you combine the 2022 class, Cliff, to your point, and the 2025 class, I would have Abdul Carter as my top player. I would have him ahead of Hutchinson myself.
I think you would have to. I agree with that. And by the way, they're different players. Remember, Hutchinson's man in the dirt.
Correct.
He's a defensive end. Carter is not a defensive end. He is an edge rusher, slash monster back in a way, because you can do a lot of stuff and move him around. He and the Hutchinson play different positions, but I do think that Carter potentially is the more explosive guy because of where he will play and the tools that he brings to the table. And look, I was a big Kayvon Thibodeau guy, but he is not the potential dominating pass rusher that Carter could be. He's just not. And I like Thibodeau a lot. You know that, John. But Carter's got more ups, I think, as a pure pass rusher.
I've heard Carl on the radio cast give a lot of props to Kayvon for setting the edge.
Well, yes, he's a much better run-defending edge setter than a lot of people ever gave him credit for. There's no question about that.
He's become more of a power player than he has been a speed upfield finesse player.
Okay. Well, if the idea is to somehow close the gap further on the Eagles, who do they have in the middle? Is it Jalen Carter, and is there another guy next to him?
Jordan Davis would be the guy that plays next to him most of the time, and they just lost Milton Williams, which I think the Eagles are actually probably going to draft 1 or 2 defensive tackles in this draft class.
Absolutely, they will.
Well, I'm still hankering for Mason, so what can I do?
Good stuff.
Don't
Appreciate
worry,
it, Cliff.
the Eagles are in no position to get Mason Graham.
Don't rationalize that into the world, please. What are you doing?
You're right. Howie Roseman will make a deal and get him.
You would have said the same thing about Jalen Carter falling to 9 a week before that draft, too. Right? That's what he got picked 9, Jalen Carter. That's where he dropped to, right? Was it 9 that year? I think
what number it was. Jesus. Okay.
That was what that was the 2023 draft, right? The Jalen Carter.
The only thing
year.
I can remember is that we were sitting together.
9.
We were in the lunchroom together when that pick came down, and both of us just wanted to throw
Oh,
up.
I told you before they picked. I said
Oh,
to
you knew it.
I
We
said,
knew
Paul,
it.
you know Jalen Carter's dropping
We
you,
knew it.
right?
We know
and
it.
then you know how much I like Nolan Smith. Of course, he drops to them at 30.
Yeah.
At pick 30. So
I know.
why he dropped that far in that draft, I have no idea.
You know-
Nolan Smith was a good football player.
I got a really good idea. Every time that Philly gets up on the clock on Thursday night and Friday night, we should just walk out of the room.
Well, we got a long way to go. They pick last. So
I know.
well, we start packing up to go home at that point, hopefully.
Oh, my.
Unless the Giants do a little movie into the back of the first round. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Paul, good stuff, my friend.
Yeah, fun show again.
All right, again, tomorrow's Big Blue Kickoff Live is recorded. Matt Waldman, Kentley Platt joins us. Pearson will probably have that edited up around noon, give or take. It'll go up. So make sure you check that out tomorrow. Draft season is up from this week with Tony, Pauline, and I. We both give our first-round grades. Tony actually is 21 this year in the first round, which I thought was a little high. True first-round grades.
Really?
I was around 16, so...
He's usually a little more conservative.
Yeah,
too.
I know. He said, look, he's maybe a couple guys I pushed in that I maybe shouldn't have, but that's where he was. The allergies are starting, by the way.
I can tell.
I've warned people that it was coming, and of course it's going to be the worst draft week, because what can you do? We also did sleepers on draft season, and we did probably about 18 or so questions from fans on draft season, too, from that people submitted on Twitter. You guys did a great job with that. So check that out, Giants Huddle Podcast. I'm going to need help from Pearson, but I always forget.
Brian Broaddus is up now.
I always forget Brian. Brian's up now. Nate Tice went up this week.
Yep.
What was Monday this week? The guy we did... we edited the week before, and we got it in.
It was Bruce Feldman.
Bruce Feldman, yes, who does a great job covering
and a
college
cool one
football
tomorrow,
for
too.
Yeah, and tomorrow we have Chris Sims coming our way. And that is recorded, so we have it. It is going to go up tomorrow, and I'm hoping for next week, we're going to have draft season on Tuesday like usual. I'm hoping for Monday will be Todd. What do we have going on Monday, Pearson?
I'm seeing Dimitrov.
Oh, yeah, Thomas Dimitrov.
Nice.
See, I always forget.
Yeah.
I've done too many of these damn things.
I know.
Pearson's
too.
done a great job editing them. Thank you, Pearson. Thomas
days
Dimitrov will
all
be
run
on Monday. Draft season will be on Tuesday. We'll have Todd McShay on Wednesday. We're recording that this afternoon, hopefully it happens. And we're working on the big guy, Phil Simms, at some point next week, too. We'll try to squeeze that in at some point next week as we get ready for the draft. And as a reminder, we have our live show on FAN Wednesday night from 7 to 9, Sunday morning from 8 to 10. And then Paul and I will be live during the Giants picks in rounds 1, rounds 2, rounds 3, and then we'll go about the first half an hour before the draft starts on Saturday. Then we'll go about an hour or so with the Giants' 4th round pick. They don't pick in the 5th round to the middle of the round because that's not their pick. It kind of got moved around in trade. We might not stay on until the 5th round. But then we'll have our wrap-up show, obviously, on Sunday morning. So stay tuned to all of that content next week as we get ready for the draft. We really appreciate all you guys checking it out. If you do like all this content, by the way, and if you're on a podcast platform or a YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the YouTube channel. If you're on a podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, leave that 5-star positive review. It does help us. We would appreciate it. We see all the positive comments. We love doing it. We appreciate you guys enjoying the stuff. One more week to go. Enjoy your Easter weekend for those of you that celebrate. Otherwise, enjoy your regular weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.